I never thought the person I loved most could betray me in a single text. I found it one rainy night. Meet me tonight. Same place. Can't stop thinking about you. The words hit like a punch straight to my chest, and suddenly, everything I believed about my marriage was a lie. For a moment, I froze, paralyzed by heartbreak, anger, and disbelief. But then something snapped inside me. I realized I wasn't going to crumble. I was going to make her pay, but in a way she'd never see coming. How far would I go to expose the truth and reclaim control? The rain had been falling all morning, soft but persistent, tapping a nervous rhythm against the windows of our cozy suburban home. I remember staring at it for hours, swirling a glass of whiskey in my hand, feeling the weight of something I couldn't yet name. It wasn't just the rain, it was the quiet, the emptiness that had settled over our house. Sarah had been out all day, or so she said. A conference call marathon, some project at work. Her excuses were always plausible, wrapped in the soft lilt of her voice. I'd believed them. I wanted to believe them. I was Juno, the guy who thought life was predictable. 35, married 10 years, living in a house with the kind of neat suburban charm that neighbors notice but rarely envy. Mowed lawns, white picket fences, the smell of freshly baked bread on Sunday mornings. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had routines, habits, a life that felt like ours. But life, I learned, had a way of laughing behind your back. That morning, I found it, or it found me. Her phone left carelessly on the kitchen counter, screen lit up like it was mocking me. A single message, meet me tonight. Same place. Can't stop thinking about you. Not from me, from him. My chest tightened, the whiskey burning a path down to my gut. But I barely noticed. All I could feel was the punch of betrayal, the kind that punches so hard you forget to breathe. I reread it again, and then again. Derek Voss. My boss. The guy who'd clapped my shoulder last month at a barbecue. Called me a good man. Laughed like we were all friends. My mind spiraled. How long had this been going on? Those late nights, the secret smiles at her phone, the sudden business trips. Everything lined up now. Each small detail. A stitch in a tapestry of deception. I'd seen the signs, but love is a strange kind of blindness. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. My hands shook, my stomach churned, and the betrayal was a raw, jagged thing lodged deep in my chest. I sat in the dark, the rain my only company, letting my anger simmer. I thought about everything we had built together. Lazy Sundays, dinners with friends, our plans for a child someday. All of it threatened by a string of words on a screen. Sleep didn't come. I stared at the ceiling, replaying moments I thought were safe. Her laughter in the kitchen, the way she rested her head on my shoulder, the mundane acts of love that now felt like a lie. Somewhere in the chaos of my thoughts, a different feeling began to grow. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was resolve. If life had handed me this betrayal, I wouldn't crumble. I'd fight it. I'd make her understand the gravity of what she'd done. Not with screams or anger, but with precision. Morning came, gray and soaked, the world outside our windows blurred by rain. I played it cool. Morning, babe, I said, planting a kiss on her cheek as she sipped coffee, the warmth of her hands around the mug making my chest ache. She smiled, oblivious. I had to keep her believing I didn't know. I needed information, proof. I wasn't going to act like a man blindsided. I'd be smarter. While she showered, I borrowed her phone using her passcode. Our anniversary. How ironic that a day we had once celebrated love now served as the key to its betrayal. The texts were hidden behind an app, but her email wasn't. A hotel receipt from the Meridian. Cross-referencing her contacts, I found the number belonged to Derek Voss, my boss. My blood boiled. This wasn't just an affair. It was a personal slap in the face. Yet I smiled when she came downstairs. Neutral, calm, calculating. Everything okay, she asked, her green eyes soft and warm, the same eyes I had fallen for 10 years ago. Perfect, I lied, smiling like a man who carried no secrets. Inside, though, I was already 3 steps ahead. I spent the day digging, reconstructing the puzzle. Derek, VP smooth, charming. Photos in the Meridian. Laughing too close. Bank statements revealing dinners and hotels I hadn't noticed. Every breadcrumb led to a bitter, ugly truth. And I knew what I had to do. Not confront, not cry, but plan. Wait, observe, build a game she wouldn't see coming. That night, the house felt smaller, heavier, like it was holding its breath along with me. I couldn't sleep though I tried, tossing and turning on the mattress we'd shared for a decade. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind against the windows, felt amplified. I thought about the message again, how casually it had landed in my life and shattered it. Meet me tonight. Same place. Can't stop thinking about you. The words weren't just a betrayal. They were a declaration. She wanted something outside of us, outside of me, and I had no idea who he was. Or maybe I did. I kept replaying moments from the past few months. That Tuesday when she worked late and came home smelling like someone else's cologne. The weekend we'd spent at my parents' lake house. Her texting under the table while I grilled steak. Those little moments I'd dismissed as normal life. Work stress, harmless distractions. But in hindsight, they were all signs, subtle threads leading to this web of deception. I had been blind, or worse, I had chosen to be blind. Morning came too soon. I forced myself to act normal, to move like nothing had happened. Morning, I said, brushing her hair from her face. Her smile was genuine, radiant even, and it made my stomach twist. Inside, a storm was raging, but outside I was calm. I sipped coffee slowly, listening to her chatter about her boring day at work, her meetings and deadlines. Every word she spoke, every laugh she forced, was ammunition for the plan forming in my mind. Step 1. Figure out who he really was. I borrowed her phone again while she showered, letting my fingers hover over the screen, hesitating. The idea of snooping felt invasive, disgusting even, but I didn't care. I had to know. Her password was predictable. Our dog's name, Juno. Too easy. I scrolled through emails and stumbled on a hotel receipt from last week. The Meridian. Dates aligned with her late nights. Cross-referencing the number in her contacts revealed a name, Derek Voss. My boss. That guy. The one I'd invited to our barbecue last month. The one who had clapped my shoulder, told me I was a good man. My chest burned, my jaw clenched, but I kept my face neutral when she came downstairs, toweling her hair. Everything okay? She asked again, tilting her head. I smiled, calm, practiced. Perfect. I meant it only in the sense that I had a plan. I had to stay 1 step ahead. The day passed in a blur of tension. I dug into Derek's background, his social media, cross-referencing posts, with the hotel photos. It all matched the same dates, the same places, the same smiles. Sarah had been careful, but she wasn't perfect. Bank statements revealed dinners, hotel charges, even a necklace I didn't recognize. The evidence was piling up, layer upon layer, and my stomach churned, but I didn't act. I couldn't. I needed more. I needed certainty. I spent that night, drafting mental plans, thinking through every scenario. How would I confront her? How could I get her to admit it without tipping her off? Could I catch them in the act? Or would this destroy me first? Anger and heartbreak morphed into something darker, something strategic. I wasn't just hurt. I was a man calculating his next move. The next morning, I shifted gears. I needed her close to keep her from suspecting. Fancy dinner tomorrow? I asked casually, as if it were just another mundane suggestion. She lit up. Her face, normally so composed, softened in anticipation. I'd love that, she said, her green eyes sparkling. And somewhere in her expression, guilt flickered. Or maybe I was imagining it. I didn't care. I had 3 moves planned before she even realized I was playing. I booked La Belle, a small private restaurant, with a reputation for discretion, perfect for what I had in mind. Meanwhile, I called Derek, pretending I needed guidance on a work project. Meridian Bar, 7 p.m. I asked casually, His confidence sure was music to my ears. Every piece of this puzzle was falling into place. The next evening, I drove Sarah to La Belle. She wore the red dress I loved, the one that always made my chest ache. Every step she took toward the restaurant felt like a test, every smile a challenge. At the table I played the doting husband, holding her hand, toasting to us all while my phone streamed to a private server. My hired professional waited, camera ready, tailing Derek without suspicion. Halfway through dessert, my phone buzzed. "He's here, with a woman, not your wife." Confusion twisted me in knots, but I kept my calm. Outside, I checked the live feed. Derek was at the Meridian, arm around a brunette I didn't recognize. The plan, the trap seemed to unravel in an instant, but I didn't panic. I adapted. I called my guy. "Get audio. I need to know what's happening." Inside, Sarah chatted, oblivious, leaning into me laughing at some story I'd barely heard. I felt like a fraud, a liar, even as I held myself together. The pieces weren't fitting yet, but I refused to let this break me. I'd wait, watch, calculate. The storm wasn't over. By the next day, clarity emerged. Derek was innocent. The Meridian footage, full of hushed business chatter, cleared him. My mind raced back to the burner phone, the hidden number I'd missed in Sarah's texts, the one matching the tone of the message. The puzzle wasn't broken. It was just more intricate, and I realized something crucial. This was far from over. The game had only just begun. The days after that night felt like walking through fog. Everything familiar had turned strange, sharp-edged, and unpredictable. I kept going through the motions. Work, errands, the same suburban routines, but inside I was unraveling. Every glance at Sarah, every casual touch, felt like a calculated risk. Was she hiding something? Was the next lie already waiting to strike? I couldn't trust the rhythm of our life anymore. I tried to act normal. I smiled at her jokes, laughed when she brought up work, even kissed her on the cheek like nothing had happened. But my mind was a battlefield, replaying that message over and over. "Meet me tonight. Same place. Can't stop thinking about you." It echoed in every silent moment. I kept checking her phone, emails, social media, anything that could give me a clue. I was obsessive, paranoid, but I justified it to myself. It was survival. Work was no refuge either. Derek was innocent, yes, but I couldn't erase the betrayal I felt. Seeing him at the Meridian with someone else, a harmless client, sure, but still someone with access to her world, twisted my stomach. I realized how deeply my world had depended on Sarah's honesty, how fragile that trust really was. It was like standing on a bridge that could collapse at any moment, and I was terrified of falling. Sleep became elusive. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake on the edge of our bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining every possible scenario. Flashbacks would strike at random. Her laughter, the way she rested her head against my shoulder, those late nights when she'd return from work smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. Every memory was contaminated with doubt. I kept asking myself, how could I have missed? How could I have been so blind? I started keeping notes, obsessively. Dates, times, receipts, text snippets. Every small inconsistency she had ever had suddenly seemed important. I became a detective in my own life, piecing together patterns that previously seemed insignificant. It was exhausting, but I couldn't stop. Every discovery brought a mix of anger, betrayal, and a cold, sharp clarity. I wasn't just hurt. I was strategizing. I was learning her habits, her secret patterns, and using them to prepare. Even our friends noticed. We had a dinner with Jason and Emily last week. Casual conversation, wine, laughter. Sarah was charming, attentive, the perfect wife on display. I smiled, toasted, participated, but inside I was distant, calculating. Jason leaned over, whispering, "You've been quiet lately, man. Everything okay with Sarah?" I forced a chuckle. "Just work stress. Nothing more." He nodded, satisfied. He didn't know the war raging in my chest. The tipping point came the following week. Sarah mentioned a surprise she was planning. Something small, harmless. I could see the gleam in her eyes, the excitement she always got from little secrets. Normally I'd have shared in that excitement, but now it felt like a threat. Any secret could be a weapon. I felt my pulse quicken, my chest tighten. I realized I had to regain control, not through confrontation, not through pleading, but through strategy.
I reached out to my professional contact, the guy I'd used before to tail Derek. I explained the new parameters: burner phone, specific bar, exact time. I was meticulous, almost obsessive. Every contingency, every variable had to be accounted for. Sarah wasn't just cheating or planning to. She was now a piece in my larger game, and I was ready to move. Days blurred together as I watched, waited, and planned. I noticed her small habits. The way she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The slight tension in her smile when she texted. I learned her routines, memorized them, and used them to my advantage. Each day I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and empowerment. The betrayal had hollowed me out, but in that hollow, a sharper, more cunning version of myself had emerged. Even the smallest incidents became lessons. I found a lipstick-stained coffee cup in the trash, wiped carefully, analyzed patterns. I cross-referenced dates, locations, and conversations in my notes. Every revelation, every clue, strengthened my resolve. I realized something profound. I wasn't just planning to catch her. I was preparing to control the narrative, to turn this betrayal into leverage. I was learning patience, subtlety, and precision in a way I never had before. And yet the emotional toll was brutal. I couldn't eat properly, couldn't sleep without nightmares, couldn't enjoy our home without suspicion lurking in every corner. Friends and colleagues were oblivious. They saw composed Matt, calm, collected, but inside I was unraveling, balancing on a knife's edge, between heartbreak and calculation. Every smile I gave Sarah, every laugh I forced, was a mask hiding a storm. But through the chaos, a plan had formed in my mind. A plan that combined patience, cunning, and observation. I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't act on impulse. I had the pieces, and now I needed the perfect alignment, the right moment to set everything in motion. Sarah had no idea the storm she had unleashed, or that I had already begun turning it back on her. By the end of that week, I felt a dangerous calm. The betrayal still burned, a constant low-grade fire, but it was tempered by strategy. I knew I was ready to act, to turn the tables, to make her understand that the trust she had broken would not go unpunished or unleveraged. Every small victory in my investigation, every new piece of information, strengthened me, reshaping my anger into purpose. And in that foggy suburban house, with rain once again tapping against the windows, I realized I had survived the first storm. The fallout had been devastating, isolating, and exhausting, but it had prepared me. The next step was mine. I would move carefully, decisively, and with perfect timing. Sarah would soon discover that the man she thought she could deceive had learned to play the game better than she ever imagined.
The next few days felt like walking a tightrope over a pit I couldn't see. Every step, every word, every glance mattered. I played the perfect husband, smiling, chatting, laughing when Sarah told stories about work or a colleague's mishap, all while the wheels in my mind were turning faster than I could write them down. I wasn't just observing. I was orchestrating, setting the stage for the moment when everything would come together. It started with small manipulations, subtle nudges. I suggested dinner out, a quiet, just us night at La Belle. She lit up, excitement flickering in her eyes, and I held it in, the calm exterior hiding the storm brewing inside. I'd arranged everything: the table, the room, the timing. My phone streamed to the private server, every movement, every expression captured. I had hired a discreet professional to tail Derek, but now my focus was singular: Sarah. Driving her to the restaurant, I watched her in the rearview mirror. The way she brushed her hair from her face, the anxious bounce in her step. She had no idea I knew, no inkling that every move she made had been anticipated. I kept my voice casual, light. "It'll be fun," I said. "Just us, no distraction." Inside, I was calculating, thinking several steps ahead. Every detail mattered: the lighting, the angle of the tables, the timing of phone notifications. At La Belle, I played the doting husband perfectly. I held her hand, made small talk, toasted to us, all while my hired guy prepared the surveillance outside. Everything was on schedule. I felt the familiar pang of guilt. This wasn't how a marriage should operate, but it was overshadowed by focus. This was a game, and I had the advantage. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. "He's here, with a woman, not your wife." My stomach twisted, confusion, anger, and a strange thrill mixed in. I stayed composed, excusing myself under the guise of a work call. Outside, I watched the live feed. Derek was with Claire, his assistant. Their conversation was all business, no mention of Sarah. Relief, surprisingly bitter, washed over me. I realized the real game wasn't Derek. It was the burner phone, the hidden messages, the lies Sarah had woven in my absence. I took a breath, regrouped, my strategy shifted. I dug deeper into Sarah's texts, searching for patterns, hidden numbers, subtle clues. Then I found a new number, carefully buried in a group chat. The messages matched the tone, the style, the words of the original one that had shattered me. Got you something special. Meet me at the Meridian tomorrow. The dates aligned perfectly with the nights she had claimed to be working late. This was it. The moment where planning turned into action. I prepared the trap meticulously. I told Sarah I had a surprise, a weekend getaway, playing the loving husband, excited for our time together. She packed eagerly, thrilled, unaware that the surprise was her own unraveling. I sent a text from a spoofed number, mimicking the burner's tone. Meridian, 8 p.m. Wear the necklace. A small detail I knew she couldn't resist. The necklace she'd shown off at dinner, supposedly from a client. I smiled at my own meticulousness. Every variable accounted for, every reaction predicted. That night, I feigned a last-minute work call. Go ahead, I'll meet you at the hotel, I said, watching her leave with a mix of anticipation and controlled anger. I followed, keeping a discreet distance, my professional tailing her from a rented car. At the Meridian, I watched her enter, scanning nervously, expecting the stranger from the text. The man approached her, tall, confident, playing his part perfectly. My heart pounded, not from fear but exhilaration. Every gesture, every hesitant laugh was captured by the camera. The setup was flawless. I had no intention of confrontation. This was about control, leverage, clarity. Then I sent the footage to Derek, anonymously, with a simple note: your wife's not the only one. The panic, the confusion, the implications. It was calculated, precise, ethical in a twisted way. I wasn't destroying anyone physically, just exposing the potential consequences of secrecy and betrayal. From my burner I texted Sarah, "Look behind you." She turned, startled, but saw nothing. The stranger had been carefully instructed to slip away at the right moment. Her phone buzzed again. "Check your email." I had sent her an edited clip, enough to make her tremble. Time-stamped, showing her with the stranger, nothing else. Her reactions were immediate. Face pale, hands shaking, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and recognition. She called me, voice quivering. "Matt, we need to talk. Now." Driving home, I felt the cold thrill of control tempered by the storm of betrayal still burning inside. She burst in, tears streaming, her words tumbling out in frantic waves. "It's not what you think. A mistake. A one-time thing." She begged, pleaded, tried to explain, and I listened calmly, as if on a stage, every expression, every syllable recorded in my memory. "I know everything," I said, producing the emailed clip I had sent to myself. Her eyes widened in shock. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I wasn't there to punish, just to assert reality. "We're going to therapy. You're going to tell me every detail. You're going to earn my trust back. If you don't, this video goes to your boss friends, even your mother." She nodded, sobbing, the weight of realization settling over her. I felt a cold satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from mastery. I had turned her deceit into leverage, the power of observation and planning asserting itself over impulsive rage. No violence, no screaming, just precise, unassailable strategy. And as we sat in silence, rain tapping softly against the windows again, I realized the transformation. I wasn't just the betrayed husband. I was the man who had turned betrayal into clarity, deception into control. And Sarah would never underestimate me again. The days after the trap played out were quiet, almost eerily so. Sarah moved around the house like a shadow, hesitant, aware now that her secrets had been caught in the net I had set. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Every glance, every casual brush of hands, felt loaded with meaning. I could see it in her eyes, the understanding that I wasn't the man she could manipulate anymore. She had underestimated me, and now she knew the consequences. Therapy was the first step. At first she was resistant, defensive, trying to gloss over details, downplay her mistakes. But I was firm. Every session was a negotiation of truth. I made her recount nights, texts, and fleeting encounters in painstaking detail. She cried, faltered, admitted things she had buried under years of excuses. I listened, not just to her words, but to the emotions beneath them, the guilt, the shame, the
the fear of losing me. It was exhausting, sometimes painful, but necessary. I needed transparency, and she needed to face the truth of her actions. Meanwhile, our home began to feel different. The warmth we had once taken for granted now had edges, sharp corners where trust had once smoothed the surfaces. I caught myself hesitating before sharing small things, measuring her reactions, gauging whether she was truthful. It was exhausting, and I hated that I had to feel this way about someone I loved deeply. But it was part of the process, a reminder that trust, once broken, doesn't repair itself overnight. Even so, I saw glimpses of the woman I had married. When she laughed genuinely, unguarded, I remembered why I had chosen her. When she made an effort, small and thoughtful, to reassure me, I felt a spark of hope, but it was tempered by vigilance. I had learned too well that deception could hide behind a smile. Patience became my ally, observation, my tool, and strategic thought my shield. The memory of the Meridian trap lingered like a quiet ghost. I replayed it in my mind sometimes, not with glee, but with recognition of how far I had come. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had turned the situation into power, not for revenge in the traditional sense, but for clarity, for the ability to set boundaries, for the capacity to demand honesty and accountability. Sarah had faced the mirror of her own actions, and I had held it for her. Slowly, small victories accumulated. She began answering questions honestly without prompting, sharing details without hesitation. We revisited shared routines, rebuilding rituals that had once been automatic. Coffee on Saturday mornings, walks in the neighborhood, quiet dinners at home. These moments didn't erase the past, but they started to rebuild the fragile lattice of trust. I didn't forgive blindly. I forgave strategically, letting actions not words repair the cracks. And yet there were moments of doubt. Nights when I lay awake listening to the rain against the windows, memories of the betrayal surfaced unbidden. I wondered if I had been too harsh, too manipulative. Was my method of teaching a lesson cruel? Did it cross a line I shouldn't have crossed? The answers were never simple. Love, I realized, is messy, entangled with anger, pride, and desire. But for now I had to focus on the reality. We were here, together, and there was work to be done. Sarah's transformation was gradual. She became transparent, not just because she feared the consequences, but because she realized the stakes. Our conversations deepened. Discussions about our future, our desires, our disappointments became part of daily life. I listened more, observed more, but also allowed myself to feel again, cautiously, carefully. Trust once shattered can be rebuilt, but it requires vigilance, patience, and above all, honesty. Months passed. The house was no longer heavy with suspicion, though caution lingered like a faint scent. I had regained control not through anger, but through strategy and observation, and in doing so, had reshaped our marriage. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was stronger, tempered by fire, by pain, by lessons learned in the shadows of betrayal. And every so often, when the rain tapped lightly against the windows, I would think back to that first message, the one that had shattered my world. The anger, the hurt, the fear, they had all led to something I hadn't expected: clarity, resilience, and an understanding of both myself and the woman I had married. We were still flawed, still human, but we were survivors. And sometimes, surviving together, even in the aftermath of deception, was victory enough. I didn't know what the future held. There would be bumps, arguments, moments of doubt, but I knew one thing with certainty: Sarah would never underestimate me again. And in that, there was a quiet, resolute power, one that no betrayal could ever take away. I had faced the storm, navigated the chaos, and emerged intact, aware, and unshakably determined. And sometimes, that was all a man could ask for.